Well, guys, as we know, we are in the midst of winter storm season. 'Tis the time of year where we see that, but it is also flu season, which is in full swing, and we're hearing from many doctors that we're at its peak. We're also hearing from pediatricians in particular that say they're seeing an influx of flu symptoms from children. Recognizing flu symptoms early in kids is very important, especially for ensuring timely care and recovery. So, we've paged Dr. Paul Roumeliotis to help us understand the symptoms, how to treat them, and when to seek medical care. Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good morning, Stefan. They brought you inside. Oh, you're still outside.
Oh, I'm still outside, my friend. I am committed to this assignment. But I know people may want to stay indoors at this time of year. I remember being in elementary school and having one teacher say, you know, sometimes we think it's the cold temperature that makes us sick. It's actually the moisture. So with so much precipitation and being exposed to that, maybe people want to be on guard as well. But break down flu symptoms in particular, because we're not talking about catching the common cold. We're talking about flu. And sometimes when we hear people say flu, they actually mean stomach flu, but a lot of people presume influenza. So let's break down the differences. Let's start with stomach flu.
Okay, stomach flu is really it's not a flu. It's really an infection of the intestine. So it's a gastro, vomiting and diarrhea, and that really is the main symptoms, right? The flu is caused by the influenza virus, which is a respiratory virus that causes respiratory symptoms. So the difference is, stomach flu or gastroenteritis is just, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. Those are kind of the major symptoms you see with gastroenteritis. And again, it's transmitted through eating contaminated food, not washing your hands when going to the bathroom, from one person to another. When you're talking about flu, it's a much more serious problem, I can tell you, Stefan. The flu itself is caused by either influenza A or influenza B. These are the different types of viruses. And they're not just like a cold. They have multiple symptoms where you would have fever, cough, and body aches. And this is the difference. When you have just a regular cold, you get a sniffles, runny nose, maybe you have a cough, but you have a high fever, cough, and a lot of body aches, and this can last 4 to 7 days. And the complications of this, particularly in young children or adults, seniors, for example, are severe respiratory difficulties and requiring hospitalization and even death. So it's not simply the common cold, and that's the difference between the two. And so people have automatically say, "Oh, I have the flu." It's probably just a cold. Don't forget, we're also getting a lot of viruses that are circulating right now that cause symptoms of the common cold that can sometimes be mixed up with the flu. But the difference is that the flu is much more serious, has higher fever, lasts longer, and can cause complications.
Can we touch on the level of contagion? Because sometimes when people aren't specific and they say flu, maybe some people are more willing to expose themselves to the influenza. They'll be like, okay, here, I brought you some soup. And then they hear they have stomach flu and they're like, I don't want the vomiting and diarrhea.
Yeah. Well, look, if it's a stomach flu, it really is transmitted through contaminated food, contaminated water, or if you prepare food yourself and somebody eats it. So the difference is if you have to ingest it, you have to eat it in order to cause stomach flu or gastroenteritis, but you have to breathe it in. So if somebody's coughing or sneezing and it goes into the air or it goes onto the surface and then you touch it and you inhale it, you get it inhaled. Whereas when you eat something contaminated or, for example, you swallow a virus or a bacteria that could cause a gastroenteritis, it's a different thing. So it's a different form of entry. That's why you get different symptoms. So if you swallow something, inadvertently a virus or a bacteria, you're going to get gastric symptoms, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and so on. But if you breathe it in, you're going to get respiratory symptoms. So that's the difference between the respiratory viruses and the so-called enteric viruses, which are the ones that cause the gastroenteritis.
All right, Dr. Paul, we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us and breaking down those differences, because clearly our word choice matters, especially in terms of keeping the people around us safe as well. You take care.
Thank you. You too.